Complex on the screen, healthcare in between. Physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive. Blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix, Maybridge got the fix. Complex subjects made clear, every episode with cheer. Ramona leads the way, explaining day by day. In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Welcome. Welcome, Dr. Reddy, to the MedBix webcast.
Hi, Ramana. It's my pleasure to be on with you on the MedBricks podcast, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
So tell us, when I was telling you, you're kind of a new polymath doctor. So tell us a little bit of your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I am a person who's had the fortune of living the American dream. I actually immigrated to the United States, with my parents at the age of 5. And my dad came here to pursue his master's degree in 1979. That's how we wound up in Kansas. And so I'm a product of primarily the public education system, certainly K through 12. But I've had the opportunity to, live the American dream. And so, as you mentioned, I grew up in Kansas, and I went to Kansas State University for undergrad. I was in honors engineering for several years. I switched my degree to microbiology and psychology and finished up those degrees, and went to medical school at the University of Kansas. And after finishing up my medical school training, I completed my residency in internal medicine and then my clinical fellowship in hematology and medical oncology at the University of Kansas here in Kansas City. I've also had the honor of participating in a K30 NIH fellowship where I was able to obtain my master's in public health. And I'm also an alum of Harvard Business School as well. Learning is a lifelong process. I've continued to, obviously in medicine, we have to continually keep ourselves up to date with the latest innovations. So we're helping our patients. I'm actually also in a clinical fellowship in integrative medicine at the University of Arizona through, the WILE program. So, and it basically gives me a whole person view of looking at Western medicine and reductionist medicine, kind of molecular biology, which is where I focused most of my life, my expertise, but tapping that into the other end, which is Eastern medicine, really focused on a whole person, mind, body, and also naturopathy to complement Western medicine. So I'm very excited to be here. Fantastic life journey, and look forward to, again, talking to your audience.
So, my father is actually a small village doctor in Andhra Pradesh, India. He is a rural Andhra. He was practicing both, integrated medicine, is a holistic way. He was looking at this. It's a long time ago. It's my late father. He died. But, sorry for that. I had your mother's loss. Same thing. I lost my both parents. Now is always a tragedy in that sense. So, Dr. Reddy, let us talk about the state of the affairs of the cancer. We have a 600,000 deaths every year in the United States. In more than 600,000 deaths due to the due to cancer, directly cancer related deaths. And then 1 in 8 women are going to, one of them afflict the breast cancer. So what are the things that we can do? So this is tell us a little bit, what are the things, options available as an oncologist you are? So what are the options available for you to tackle this huge disease?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally there's some big picture things that we should be aware of. I would term this I squared, for the patients, right? So number one, it's innovation. Number two, it's implementation. So if we don't get innovation right, then we're not driving forward human understanding on how we can tackle some of these healthcare challenges. But the number two aspect of this is implementation. And so by that, I mean, we can have all of the great innovations that we want, but if it doesn't get into the hands of patients, then we're going to be failing the patient and not really impacting their quality of life and ultimately, their healthcare outcomes in a positive way. So I think fundamentally, those are the things that need to be applied in cancer medicine. But honestly, it's just not cancer medicine. We can apply those principles in ensuring that we create public policy that ensures that we're, pushing forward for innovation, but also on the back end, healthcare implementation across all human illness. And honestly, one of the things I tell you is that I've had the opportunity not just to practice in various clinical settings, private practice, academics, managed care, but I've also seen the healthcare ecosystem in my industry experience, both in Boston at a company called Foundation Medicine, a personalized and precision medicine company, but then also in my last role, Senior Vice President and Global Enterprise Head of Oncology across diagnostics and drug development at Labcorp. And so I think these are the elements. We have to understand all of the players, with patients being the center of our universe, and then thinking about how do we integrate, these healthcare solutions across that ecosystem of payers, providers, healthcare systems, and then of course pharmaceutical companies as well.
Let me ask you first thing first, that is a screening. Cancer screening is the biggest. I used to provide a mammography services, the ultrasound breast cancer, that's what I used to do. But I'm not a doctor, but I used to own an imaging lab, and then I used to provide that in the rural area, rural Georgia. So what is now any improvement there in the mammography is a very, is always say is a very controversial in the sense that it may not have a very good results, false positives, a lot of them, or false negatives sometimes. So what are the new tools available for screening more rapidly, and then at the point of care system? Do you have some ideas in the screening side?
Yeah, for sure. So again, after I left day-to-day clinical practice, I've certainly maintained my medical license through the whole time and continue to see patients. But, when I went to the company called Foundation Medicine based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, we were really looking at elements of, understanding the impact of genomics on cancer. And by that, there's big kinds of ways that we could apply cancer genomics. Can it help with screening? Can it help with prognosis? Can it help with therapy selection? And so the answer is yes to all of those questions. And then, you said innovation. So I'll just jump into this. Again, I was the global head of medical affairs for Foundation Medicine, taught thousands of pathologists and medical oncologists across the world on looking at not just tissue-based biopsies, but liquid biopsies. Basically, the thought process here is there's information, there's insights from the cancer that is shed into the bloodstream. And using a liquid biopsy, we can actually look at either fragments of DNA or exosomes or other actual biological materials that are shed into the DNA, and basically look at, can we get insights into potentially applying for cancer screening or therapy selection or even prognosis.
I attended a first meetup group in Silicon Valley, the liquid biopsy presentation 10 years ago. Actually, they were in the free DNA moving around in the body. That's also presenting there. It's a very interesting. So there is a lot of things we can do at the point of care, particularly rural areas. I used to place J1 doctors in the Visa rural areas. And then I used to travel as very, very rural places including California and then Georgia, Alabama. So when you go there, how do you reach these rural population, these screening procedures? You think that is the next big revolution has to be in the screening side to move that massive screening in the rural side in Americans. We got to reach through that process. Do you have some idea how do you implement that kind of a process?
Sure. I mean, we all recognize that, to your point, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so if we can avoid these illnesses, that's the best way to treat patients long term. It's cost effective. And most importantly, it's the best way to save lives and improve quality of life. So here, my personal opinion is that there's really two big things that I would say. The first thing is we have to look at diagnostics technology. And by diagnostics, I would more broadly talk about both imaging as well as laboratory to improve, the ability to look at screening, modalities, because that is easier to decentralize and easier to get into the hands of patients, maybe even at home, for example, than say doing procedures like, colonoscopy, which is a critical procedure for colon cancer screening. It's critically important, but it's an invasive procedure. So are there ways that we can, improve access to these screening technologies? And I do believe that we can, improve that. Now, the other piece is data science. Now, a lot of folks confuse artificial intelligence and data science. Well, before we jump straight to artificial intelligence, we have to look at data science, good quality data. How are we abstracting that data? How are we ensuring, high quality data is coming in so that we can extract high quality insights out? And if we don't do that, the things that we're using to train artificial intelligence is going to be also flawed. So I do think it's important to recognize that data and data science can be the scaffolding, the foundation for, using tools like machine learning and artificial intelligence to also refine our ability to interpret and increase the accuracy of our screening tests.
Let us talk about data a little bit. You brought it up. So the data is, a lot of times these companies, healthcare systems, they're not open to release all this data. That's a big challenge for a lot of these research institutions. How do you address that? You're running for Congress, if you get elected, how do you change that data? The access to data is a big challenge for a lot of people. For example, MD Anderson, they won't release. Epic, they wanted to keep their own data there. So how do we solve that problem? Interoperability systems in this one.
Ramana, I will tell you this. My life, in medicine is trying to fight for folks, outside of, me, right? That's what medicine's all about. You mentioned my mom passed away. When she passed away in September at my home, she was on hospice, and she told me three things as a young man, little boy. And she basically said, number one, don't worry about the noise in the world because there's always noise. Number two, fight for people. And number three, do your best. And those are the things that we can do well. And I believe that's the way we're going to have to tackle these issues. There's always going to be challenges. But from my perspective, when you look at access, patient access, the data does not belong to any healthcare system. It does not belong to payers. You know who it belongs to? Patients. Yeah. And so as long as you are able to give back to the patients a value proposition that is bringing them some positive, either insights into how they should, navigate their healthcare journey, or gives them insight into their personal health, their biology. I think that that data is accessible. In fact, at Labcorp, one of the things that I was looking at is access to patients. We touched half of the U.S. population, so we had access to patients, and so then it becomes a function of legally today, public policy. It is now mandated that patients now own their data, and it's not just a superficial accounting of that data. It's not, I saw, Dr. Smith today for my diabetes. It's actually Dr. Smith's note on the patient who has full access now to their laboratory, to their imaging, and the actual clinical notes as well. And so from my perspective, I think it is critically important when we think about public-private partnerships and the role of government to ensure that we're maximizing our ability to use that data to improve the lives of the entire population, right? That's what public health is all about.
Let us talk about, now you mentioned that the artificial intelligence also. Let us talk about that. Artificial intelligence, I think generative intelligence particularly, you think that, the problem we have, the challenges we have with the cancer is the cure and the treatment and conditions are really sometimes desperate situations there. How do artificial intelligence can find a cure or find at least to manage as a chronic condition, the cancers? What is your idea on that one? What do you think of it?
Yeah, so the first thing is very much a foundational discussion on definitions, right? When we think about, cancer, it's, you could subset that into hundreds of sub illnesses or different diseases. So cancer is an overarching kind of definition. Yes, it's basically cells that have stopped listening and are have uncontrolled cell growth. But the truth is, when you look at say CML, which is chronic myelogenous leukemia, there's a single on-off switch in CML. That's the tyrosine kinase called BCR-ABL. And, if we can turn off that particular switch in CML, we've essentially controlled that disease. The problem in many, many cancers is that it is not a single on-off switch. And so you may have, aberrations in multiple signal transduction pathways, like, for example, in the EGFR pathway or the RAS-RAF-MEK-ERK pathway or the PIK3 kinase AKT-mTOR pathway. And the list is long, like the insulin axis, the IGF, axis, and many, many other pathways. Not to even talk about, say, immune checkpoints and many other innovative areas in signal transduction that we're working through right now. But that's where it gets tricky. And so what we have to do is understand that when we treat a cancer, it's dynamic. And so it's not static. So when we treat somebody, we want to have that molecular understanding of what's happening. And so we are treating the right patient at the right time with the right drug in the right clinical situation, right? Stage 4 treatment's different than, say, stage 1. Or maybe it's for cancer screening. Our applications of this technology is different. And actually defining the characteristics of the test that we want, the specificity, the sensitivity, the positive predictive value, negative predictive value, and so on and so forth becomes very important. And so I think those are the things where we can fine tune how we're using these tools. And then where AI comes into play is that it's basically allowing us to ingest and interpret the data in a much more efficient way than human beings. Like as you are well aware of, if you look at mammography, even in Boston, and some of the world-renowned academic institutions in Boston, affiliates of Harvard Medical School, using AI to look at patients' mammograms was superior than having individual mammography-trained radiologists interpreting the same information. So again, we have to have the data. We have to ensure that we're telling AI, hey, this is the framework, this is high quality data, because we don't want to train AI on incorrect data. And then we can let AI hopefully augment and complement the role of physicians in taking care of patients. Because, by the way, I don't think AI is going to fully replace physicians, because medicine is incredibly complicated, and I do think we need a human intervention. And I don't think we should rely on just AI alone, because AI, at least in its current state, is filled with flaws, and we have to be very careful not to be over-reliant on AI without human, intervention.
I'm in Silicon Valley. That's all they talk about every day here. Is all CAI is going to be a solution for all of it, including even anything that you can mention. AI is the solution. So let me, when you said that cancer, let us talk about woman breast cancer a little bit. What is the state of the affairs at that time? What is the status there? We have better tools, or we have better diagnostic tools, treatment options. Can you tell us a little bit about the woman's breast cancer situation there? That is one of the biggest challenges everybody is facing in the world, actually.
For sure. So one of the things that really excites me about, breast cancer treatment, and frankly, more broadly, cancer treatment in general, is the number of therapeutics that we also have access to. So one of the things about diagnostics and even AI and data science, say we understand something and say this is the problem, but then we don't have a tool or a solution to fix the problem, we've only gotten halfway. And so the other thing that's so exciting to me right now, why I'm so excited about healthcare and the possibilities to help people here in this country, but all over the world, is that the therapeutic pipelines are so robust, including in breast cancer. So we have our traditional, kind of chemotherapy agents. Unfortunately, they're not very specific. They kill the fastest growing cells, which are typically the bad guys. But then we have good guys that grow fast, and that's where we get side effects when we use chemotherapy. We have targeted therapies, for example, PI3 kinase inhibitors that are focused only on that particular gene that's overactive in specific cancer cells that we can go after in breast cancer. And there's many other targets, of course. Traditionally, we could go after the estrogen receptor, for example, or HER2 or B2 as another target. And there's many, many, many more, right? So we have these targeted therapies, but then we also have immunotherapies. So there's a number of immune checkpoints that we're, going after. And so, PD-1, PD-L1 is, a classic example now with a number of inhibitors in that particular pathway. But there's a number of other ones, both inhibitory and stimulatory immune checkpoints, right? OX40, lag, again, there's a number of potential ways we can go here. And those are also being applied in breast cancer. And then lastly, don't forget about cell and gene therapies. With the technologies that we have nowadays, we are looking at vaccine-based technologies and other gene therapies, where there may be loss of function in some hereditary cancers that maybe we can replace through gene therapy and so on and so forth. So I'm super excited. I mean, what I'm telling you is that we are in a unbelievable era where between therapeutic pipelines, diagnostics that will help us understand biology primarily through imaging and laboratory data, and then data science, that can help us, refine our insights, but also perhaps improve the efficacy of clinical trials. And I do think that, getting access to clinical trials is a very important thing to improve healthcare outcomes, but it's also an important economic variable that we have not fully tapped into when we talk about social determinants of health.
Just let us talk about social determinants. You brought it up. So, that a lot of patients, sometimes they think that cancer is a death sentence. Besides that, the another threat, financial threat, the amount of cost it goes up there for people file bankruptcies. How can you did some social determinants clinical trials on it? I heard that. So tell us a little bit about how do you approach the policy of the cancer policy in that sense to address the financial aspect of the cancer?
Sure. So my master's in public health was actually high-risk prostate cancer. I've done, PET imaging research, but more broadly, my master's in public health is why do African-American men do worse than their counterparts with high-risk prostate cancer? And the answer, wasn't shocking, but it literally was biological differences, but then also importantly, social determinants of health, either trust in the healthcare system and willing to participate in healthcare, or, the cost. We talk about, say, going to an academic center and driving 10 miles every, let's say every week. Well, for some folks, that is a financial cost that's, not sustainable. And so we have to be mindful of that. And so basically what I would tell you is that, when I look at things like clinical trials, and I look at what a public-private partnership means, the role of government, this is where I think government can play a real role to improve healthcare outcomes, again, for social determinants of health. So in the Kansas area, if you live in the Kansas City metro, which is where I live, and there's social determinants of health, but a lot of Kansas is rural. And those social determinants of health, including financial toxicity, are real. So if I live in Hays, Kansas, Western Kansas, and I want to get the best healthcare, am I going to be able to drive not 10 miles, but say hundreds of miles to get access to a clinical trial? And the answer typically is no. So when we think about public health and we think about, rising tides to lift all boats, we have to think about how we look at these tools like, clinical trials and technology to make sure that gets into the hands, again, health implementation, right? Innovation and implementation, that it gets out to rural areas. And we can do that. I have a number of ideas where we can, decentralize clinical trials. There are companies out there right now today that are working to either through telehealth or other mechanisms, trying to decentralize clinical trials to make it more accessible, no matter where you live, that you have access to the best healthcare.
The cost of the cost is one of the things that you need. How can the you're giving me there's a lot of progress going on in the cancer field, as you say, in the diagnostic side, in the treatment side. But that patients don't feel that, that is a bigger challenge now. Communication is another problem with there's a lack of trust from the patient point of view with a lot of doctors nowadays, because they think they are representing the pharmacy industry. They think that they're representing somebody else. That is a some extent true, some extent may not be true. But what is your opinion on that?
It's a great question. It's a critical question, Ramana. So here's what I tell you. The challenge that we have, which is also a fantastic opportunity for a solution, is how do we preserve innovation while not negatively impacting access to therapies, right? And so the key here is if the cost makes it inaccessible, who cares? But how do we ensure that we keep innovation robust? And so one of the ways that I look at, if you have a generic drug, like insulin, for example, you absolutely should negotiate the price. And we should look at, from a public policy perspective, ensuring that people aren't, trying to, take advantage of the current system by extending patent life on a generic drug by just say mode of delivery, like changing it from, oral to IV or IM or vice versa, right? That is not really, I think sufficient innovation to say you should extend patent life. And the insulin's a good example of that, right? Where I do think we should negotiate prices there. However, what we need to do is think about other ways we can augment that through not just price negotiation, but ways that we can drive keeping robust, therapeutic pipelines. So we can look at, make the drugs, that we're studying today, instead of the cures of tomorrow, make them the cures of today. And again, one way I would say that is thinking about a health economics perspective. Again, I've had I've had small business experience and big business experience as a Harvard Business School alum. I understand a lot of these economic factors, but we have to counterbalance healthcare delivery. And if we ignore health economics, we're going to get ourselves into trouble. And so if we can do clinical trials, for example, in Hays, Kansas, now what we've done, which by the way, in many rural areas, healthcare and the hospital system in that area, in that town, is the number one employer. And so if we can't keep these hospitals alive and robust and thriving, many of these areas, many of these towns are going to be under tremendous financial pressure, and they're going to start closing down. And so it is important when we think about from a public policy perspective. My way, I'm going to come back to this again, clinical trials. If we do clinical trials in areas that don't have it, in the community setting, where 70% of patients are still taken care of, by the way, not in academic centers, we can get revenue from clinical trials back to these systems and give them a lifeline so that we keep innovation robust instead of just saying we're going to cap prices on everything. Because I do think that, it sounds good, but I think what will happen there is that we will force pharma to shrink their pipelines, which ultimately will mean that less innovative drugs, the cures of tomorrow, make it in the hands of patients, sooner than later, which is very worrisome for me.
So, Silicon Valley people we all think that innovation means a free enterprise system, free market system. But healthcare doesn't practice. Actually, they carved out every health system, their own geographical locations. They carved out all the places. So this is a big challenge, right? And so it is not a true enterprise or true free enterprising system is not there. How do we as innovators, we want a free enterprise system? It doesn't mean the social, we don't need to take care of we can still accommodate social determinants, people with economically disadvantaged people. We can definitely take care of it through enterprise. A government is another buyer for those people. So I think that is a big thing missing. Do you think some ideas, you're just mentioning about it, actually, you're giving a bigger plan. So you think a free enterprise system has a role to play in this one? And what is
I'm a free market person. I believe in people. Government is also formed of people. Government should not dictate everything to the people. It's vice versa. So for me, it's unlocking the potential of innovators, entrepreneurs, brilliant people. We just need to give them opportunities to find solutions, whether it's a product or a service, to help a consumer. In this case, in healthcare, it's patient. And so what we want to do is make sure that we unlock people, the average person in the world, the average person in this country, give them the tools that they need so they can be successful entrepreneurs and innovators to get those solutions into the hands of those patients. And so I do think we need to find a balance. It is a balance, by the way. And I think most people argue on where that balance should be, right? Which is, we can't do this in a way where there's no regulation, because that's bad. We need to have some form of regulation, but we also need to find where that right place is so that we unlock the potential of entrepreneurs and innovators so they can find these solutions. And I am worried about that. I tend to err on the side of less regulation and giving innovators and entrepreneurs an opportunity to, to create these incredible solutions that free market enterprise truly drives, right? Because it incents people to say, hey, what can you do to help people? And by the way, it's a lie to say that business is all bad and profit is bad. What I tell you is you can have a great business and help people. Now, you don't, to your point, we don't want to pick winners and losers through government where it's not, a great product or service. And so that's where we get into trouble. So what we want to do is, have great businesses that are providing products or services, let them be very successful as long as they're helping people. And the danger in government is when, we're picking winners and losers, maybe when they're not helping people as much as they should. And we're still picking them because of other reasons. I'll just be kind. Let's just say conflicts of interest and other reasons why we're picking, one winner versus, some other company who might be a loser.
You mentioned the clinical trials, but some of them are some quarters, at least some quarters, think that there's a bias. The bias is a big problem in the clinical trials. They don't, I interviewed a doctor from Stanford. She says that a lot of the drugs are she's a Chinese woman, Asian doctor. She was telling that most of the drugs are for the white Caucasian population. It was not doing for any other, including Indian, black, and brown. And there is a lot of clinical bias. How do you solve that clinical bias in the trials itself, Dr. Reddy?
Look, again, as you said, I'm running for the U.S. House, and I'm doing this for one reason only. As I said, this is to help people. And so I can tell you, when I was practicing a number of years ago, there was a national registry for pets. Pet imaging, functional imaging, where it was a national pet registry where, physicians who used pet imaging, they had to basically document data on how getting the pet, what did it show, and how did it influence your clinical decision-making to get access to the pet. And so personally, to your point, what you just described is, even the lowest of low-hanging fruit, which is like looking at clinical trials participation across a, ethnic background or racial background. What I would tell you is that to fully understand biology, it's even worse when we look at molecular biology. So if you look at, say, the rate of EGFR positivity in a Caucasian versus an Asian person, it's very different. And so when we look at those disparities, particularly when we're looking at innovative treatments or access to those innovative treatments, or even innovative tests, we're going to get false biased data sets that are then going to influence, access to these innovative therapies, which is not representative of the whole population. So we need participation. To your point, what we need to do is we need to have public policies that ensures that when we're thinking about these public health issues, that, for example, if you did comprehensive genomic profiling or genomic sequencing, a kind of genomic sequencing, a subset of genes as opposed to whole exome or whole genome sequencing, that we have appropriate representation so that when we're getting these molecular insights and we say, well, what percentage of patients are EGFR positive? Is it 10 to 20% or is it 50%? And so if we don't do the appropriate tests across the whole population, then even our insights are going to be skewed. And if we have data that's skewed, then, and we're training artificial intelligence, then even the artificial intelligence solutions are going to be skewed. So we got to get participation and representation across people. And I do think that can be done through, sound public policy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But there's you mentioned PET scan. PET scans are very expensive. I used to set up a PET scan studies to the doctors. It is not easy, particularly if you get half life and some of the rubidium, some of the isotopes are not easy to get to the small rural areas. PET scan is a gold standard, but still it is a lot of problems with it. We have any alternative solutions, Dr. Reddy, for the
Yeah,
imaging side?
For sure. And I think this is where data science and AI can come into play, right? Because we can extract a lot of information, even out of a plain old X-ray. And people will look at an X-ray and say, well, that's what the X-ray shows. Well, the thing that we don't know is if we have data and we have outcomes, and we can go back and train AI to say, what else do you see, AI algorithm, we can extract so much more rich data and potential meaningful clinical decision support algorithms out of that data. And so, yeah, pets are important. They're a part of our armamentarium. And to your point, I actually did PET imaging research, and you're exactly right. I was looking at not FDG or glucose-based PET, but C11 choline and C11 acetate in prostate cancer. The problem is not everybody can have like those radioisotopes like C11 choline and acetate because of the half-life. And so you can't, unless you're in a tertiary care center, you may not be able to do those kinds of specialized PETs. So that is where I do believe that we can look at AI and data science and look at even old forms of imaging and see with, through the scientific method and trials, what other insights we can extract beyond what we know today.
So genetic data and the liquid biopsy, these kind of things can help much more quick in the process, easier way to reach the large number of people in rural areas and urban areas or whatever if it is a challenging to get a PET scan access. Doctor, you are in a military service. You are a lieutenant colonel in the lieutenant colonel in the USA Air Force Reserve. What kind of things you learned from the Air Force that you think that you could understand better and then implement into your private practice?
Yeah, it's another awesome question, Ramana. So I would say, again, for me, getting American citizenship was, an honor of a lifetime. And I would say beyond that, serving in the military has been an honor of my lifetime. And so it's because of the people next to you. And it's because it's not about you. It's about what are you doing more broadly for something bigger than you. And so the things that I've learned through medicine and the military, and hopefully soon here getting elected to the U.S. House, is don't focus on you. This isn't about you. It's what can you do to help people? And what can you do to fight for causes bigger than yourself? And that's one of the things that I've learned from the military is that it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the people around you. The Air Force, and I'm, Air Force Lt.Colnel. I just finished Air War College a few months ago. We have 3 core values. 1, integrity first. 2, service before self. 3, excellence in all we do. And so those things are applicable to not just the military, not just the Air Force, but our personal lives. And, those are the things that I strive to. There are good days and bad days. No human being's perfect, but that's what I strive to do every single day. And that's what the military's taught me. Yeah, of course, discipline, teamwork. These are important things. I will just share with you, when I finished Air War College, I focused on, kind of a minor, if you will, on cyber and space. So there's air, land, and sea. So, Air Force, Army, and Navy. But the new warfighting domains, interestingly enough, are space and cyber. And so in the military, certainly for senior leadership, for strategic, policy making, it's critically important that, the military also understands the importance of space and cyber, which, by the way, space technology, satellite technology, transmission of information, protection, both offensive and defensive capabilities in cyber, critically important for national security, including healthcare. And so how do we protect health information? How do we ensure, telemedicine is secure? How do we think about access to patients like Starlink? Forget landlines. If satellite technology is, enabled, it could be that every person in every remote corner of the world, even if they don't have a landline, will have access to the internet. That is amazingly powerful. That is amazingly, gives me hope that no matter where you live, you can hopefully through technology be enabled to have access to all of these awesome innovations that we're talking about today.
Yeah, just one of the final questions I'm going to ask you is: out of the cost, the cost of healthcare is going up. It's American paradox, right? The cost is going up, access is going down. It is a big problem. How do you change that policies at the fundamental level? The ocean, boiling the ocean, for example, you need that kind of a leader, energetic leader you need. So why we are really, this, as you said, that in fact is a national security issue, because the more and more money going towards the healthcare, and then you're lacking in the defense or education. All those things are suffering those areas. So I think it is very important to pay attention to the healthcare and reduce the cost and give more access. So tell me what plans you have for that kind of thing.
Look, Ramana, what I would tell you is it's one of the challenges of our lifetime, and we have to get this right. And it comes back to a word you already used, leadership. We are failing in leadership. And so that's where it starts, is good leadership. Yeah. Next to that, I would tell you there are other things that we can certainly leverage. For example, we have to get, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Incremental progress is important. So let's keep working toward, it's the old saying, you take one step and you take, before you know it, you'll have walked a mile, right? 1,000 steps equals, maybe, like a mile, right? So keep moving forward, keep having progress. Of course, we want to accelerate that progress, but keep moving forward. Don't let perfection stop you from making progress. The other thing is transparency, right? So I talked about I squared, innovation and implementation. There's also T squared, which is, truth and trust. And as part of truth is you got to be transparent, right? And so truth and trust are important things. They work off of each other, but you got to have things like transparency. So I think, what we need to do is, particularly in this era, we need to find areas of commonality. Don't look for differences. Start for where everybody agrees that this is what we all agree that say this needs to be done. Then we can work on the other things and fight about the other things later. But let's at least agree on the things that we can get done and move those forward.
Dr. Reddy, you did so many things. You're a doctor, you're an oncologist, you're the reserve in the military and then Air Force, and then you're doing MBA, you're running for Congress. What do you do for relaxation? What do you do for things to relax your mind? What kind of things that you need to, survive in this world like that with all the pressures you have?
Well, Ramana, this is the honest truth. Sometimes the world, again, can be a frustrating place. My advice to everybody is a couple of things. No human being is perfect. Be resilient. The world sometimes can seem unfair. It can sometimes be frustrating. Don't let those things get you down. The world is an amazing place. It's framing. How do you view a challenge? Is it an opportunity, or is it something that's, oh my God? If you see something that's unfair, think about what you can do to make it more fair, right? And so at the end of the day, don't be discouraged. Stay positive, stay true. And for me, the things that excite me are all the things we spoke about. When I was a young man, I got to represent the state of Kansas, at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, selected to represent the state. And that was in high school. And I met 10 Nobel Prize winners. And, when I went there, I was just amazed at the possibilities that the world offered. Not the negative, not the challenges, not the, all of the things we can't do, but all of the things that we have an opportunity to make a difference in, and that is the power that we have. We all have choices every day when we wake up. What are we going to do today? And that is what drives me and keeps me energized, because if you can't get energized about helping a cancer patient or helping any patient struggling through their healthcare problem, what is going to make you fulfilled? So for me, that's easy. Medicine drives me. Same thing with the military. Profound challenges all over the world. We're fighting for right. We're fighting for democracy all over the world. If you can't get fired up for something that's as big as fighting for the representation of people all over the world, and certainly in the United States, what are you going to get fired up for? We're fighting to defend the freedoms that we far too often take for granted. The same thing is true for the political system. I'll be honest, I think it's broken. I'm frustrated, but it keeps me going. I'm not down about it. I just view it as another opportunity to keep chipping away and trying to make a difference.
Dr. Reddy, we are born in the same state. I can see your mother's wisdom through you. I see that you're resolute you are, and then you want to help people. I think it is truly an honor to talk with you, Dr. Reddy. You're an oncologist, a very respected oncologist. You're providing a service to the military. In the military, you're really running for Congress. You're trying to help people. Thank you so much for joining with us. I'm truly honored and privileged to have you.
It's my honor, Ramana. Thank you for having me on, and really enjoyed our conversation. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.